Good morning to everyone. This is Friday, October 21st, 2022. It's a meeting of the Jail District Public Outreach Committee, and I'll call roll. Frank Antonori here, David Pessel here. Kate Goykovich is unable to attend. Present. Here. Jennifer Laxo. Here. Katie Miller. Here. Eric Peterman. Here. John Pentek here. Paul Sheets, I can see him here. Great, thank you. And Danya Kosa is not here. This is Jim Conlog. We do have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is an action to approve the use of proxy for Kate Goykovich, who is not present. Mr. Karlowski?
Yes, so we sent out proxy form, but the committee has never yet approved the use of a proxy. So we had to fill out the form and submit it. But at this point in time, the committee can either accept the proxy or not. And it wasn't handled previously.
And proxy is?
The proxy is to constitute and appoint John Pentek.
So Mr. Pentek will be voting both for himself and for Kate Goykovich, who he's known for a long time.
I think I'm the oldest one in here.
She did include an email, so that's if you guys like me to read the email.
I so move. Second.
I'll second.
All right, got a second. All in favor of allowing the proxies indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed unanimously. And I believe that Mr. Sheets voted yes as well. That's very good. And that is approved. The next is the action to approve the minutes of the jail district meeting on September the 23rd. If you will recall, we were presented with the minutes of Ms. Goykovich indicated that it should include discussions related to the officer safety. And those discussions were had during the tour and not actually when the meeting was convened. And county staff went through and word for word looked at that. So those discussions were actually not in the official meeting. There was no amendment to the minutes. And so it's just the minutes that you previously saw. And so the motion before was to approve the minutes with the amendment to include the discussion that actually happened in the jail and not in the meeting.
Well, actually, she wasn't on that tour.
Oh, that's right.
But she wanted to add language for safety and security of staff and inmates. And after I reviewed it and Tim Maddox reviewed it again, there was never a discussion on that, and minutes have to accurately reflect what the meetings were. So that's why we're bringing it up.
Yeah, there were discussions during the tour that I was on, and I think it was on other tours as well, but it wasn't in the official meeting. So is there a motion to approve?
Did we discuss that in the meeting we had right after that? We didn't. I thought we did. We did. Holy cow.
So you talked about in the meetings about the security and the jail yard, but not.
I remember talking about when we went out and toured the exercise yard. You said there was one guy. I remember distinctly talking about that.
Well, yeah.
But it wasn't in the meeting in the.
It wasn't in the meeting.
No, I don't know. I think
There was that meeting.
you did mention that.
You did, but it's in the minutes. That is in the minutes.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
But it wasn't specifically. I didn't say the magic words.
right. You didn't say.
Deputy safety and inmate safety.
Yeah, you didn't say safety and security of staff and inmates specifically. So
All right.
we have to be accurate on the minutes.
That's fine.
So is there a motion to approve the original minute? There's a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. Right. There are multiple seconds.
I think John got it first.
All right. And then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the original minutes are approved. Now we go to the approve the minutes of the meeting on October the 7th. Those were online for your review. Any additions, deletions, corrections to those minutes?
It's online, but I'll print it.
So any, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Makes the motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? And all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? It passed unanimously. The next item is for Mr. Karvatska to sign the minutes of this meeting. I did indicate to him that I'll be traveling by here 3 days next week. I'm happy to do it, but I'm happy to have Mr. Karvatska sign to do that. So,
The formality, but if you guys are fine with me, so I don't have to burden.
do you need nobody with that?
Yes.
One more.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I won't oppose, so I won't have to drive by it. So that's easy.
You can, you're always welcome.
All right. So next is a discussion related to the next steps in the jail district process. This is a process outside of this committee. Mr. Karvatska.
So I sent an email out to everyone, but I wanted to have a discussion. Because after reviewing the statutes, I was talking about it a little bit, and the public made comments at the board meeting when they're going to finally consider it. They can, and that will happen on November 15th. And the recommendation that's established by this committee will happen on November 15th. However, in reading the statute, and to me after reading it, it seems a little convoluted, but the board has to adopt a resolution to consider a jail district. So that's for today at 11. So that is not establishing a jail district. That's just to consider, because we have to post that in the public for 3 weeks in a row. And so that public comment can actually happen on November 15th. So on November 15th, that's the fun day the board will hear recommendations, the public comment, if anyone wants to make public comment, also a presentation by us. So this meeting today is simply to adopt a resolution to consider it. And I read the statute a couple of times, conferred with the county attorney, and yes, we have to do a resolution to consider. And instinctively, that bothered me, because I was like, why are we making a resolution to consider something? But that's what the statute says, to trigger our notification requirements out to the public and for the public to comment on November 15th. So I hope the email is clear, but I don't like emails. I like to talk to people. So if there's any questions or comments about that portion, I can answer them. And we do have the statute available if you wanted to review.
And the meeting for today is a public meeting, and all of you certainly may attend. And I suppose if it doesn't pass, then there won't be a meeting on November 15th.
Well, whatever recommendation.
I mean, not from this committee, but if the board
yes.
decides not to go.
So that meeting right after this is a public meeting to discuss this?
Only to discuss whether public, whether they should set a hearing on November 15th to consider it.
They're not going to hear. Okay.
No comments from this committee.
It's just public as far as the people who watch it.
Correct.
It's ended.
We'll revert to public people, and if you want to sit in, watch them, whatever you want to do. That's that, right?
Is there a call to the audience in that meeting?
Not that I know. No.
No,
I
okay.
want to double check with the clerk who set the agenda.
I was just curious. So yeah, it's just. I got you.
And then on the 15th, you're all invited and encouraged to attend if you wish to do that, to make any comments that you might have, give any input that you have for the Board of Supervisors to.
What time is that meeting?
It's at 10 a.m.
And that'll be in Bigwood.
I'm going to be in Korea on that day. I wish I could have been there.
Is it 10 or 11? It's set for 10 a.m.
You come.
written comments are fine.
Yeah, you know, probably not the right side.
Well, I'll wait to another item, but we might be able to address that issue on it. So any questions about the process? So there's going to be first the board of supervisors meeting today, whether they want to have a notice that they're going to consider the district in a meeting on November 15th.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, nothing is happening today. It's November 13th. But it's a little confusing. But there's no questions, then
Okay. All right. So we get now into a discussion and action on our recommendation. Two recommendations on whether or not to form a jail district, and also a recommendation on whether to build a new jail or rehabilitate the existing facility. And I encourage you to make any comments that you'd like to make now. That they'll be recorded, they'll be available to the board if you want to make any comments related to the review issues. Last week, I kind of indicated my initial thoughts on it, starting with the whether to build or rehabilitate. I believe that there are just inherent inadequacies in both the design and the current structure of the facility. It has a very limited lifetime and doesn't have the capacity to anticipate the county will need. But so discussion, and I suppose we start with whether or not we need a jail district. It's opposite in my mind. It's like if we're building a new jail, that question becomes a lot easier to me. The discussion about creating a jail district and any comments that you make will be a part of the record.
Sure. I'm a data-driven guy. That's my day job. So if you look at the data, and I appreciate the numbers that I got from the deputies and everybody else that are involved. There is no doubt in my mind that there are significant costs that are incurred with this old, out-of-date jail. The cost to maintain it, the resources that go into that could probably be better modified if you put some efficiencies in a new design that will allow fewer deputies to maintain larger inmate populations. What I really want to add is I really don't think, this is again my opinion, that building it anywhere near where it currently is probably the right thing to do. If you were to build a new jail, I believe the board really needs to do a detailed cost-benefit analysis of where that jail should be going. And the biases about, oh, it's in Bisbee's the county seat, I got it. But after talking and hearing and talking about, how you cook the food and you still ship the food all over and how you're driving inmates all over and the efficiencies that go with that, I believe, now although I don't have the data to validate my belief, but anecdotally, I believe that there is a better place to put that jail besides where 2 miles or whatever down the road from where it currently sits. And before the board goes out to the voters, I think that's always been my point here. I don't think I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I don't want to say, I do believe we need a new jail. Hands down, the old one is just not cutting. I think, though, before you go to the voters and the board, I'm going to strongly recommend, and I'll write a letter since I won't be able to be there, that before they approve anything to go to the ballot to raise taxes on the people of this county, they do a little bit more homework. And I think it's worth the couple $100K to find a couple $100K somewhere to do that analysis before they go out to the voters and ask voters for the tax increase. I think it would be a smart, prudent thing to do to have more, just to go out and say, hey, we're going to build a jail someday, somewhere, whatever, we're going to raise your sales tax a 0.5% or whatever the board decides to do, is probably not going to bode well as far as the outcome goes unless the voters know up front. And I think that the county, and I know the resources are limited. The board doesn't have a lot of money, but it's the penny wise, pound foolish. You spend a little bit of money up front, it could save you millions and millions of dollars downstream. And that's my point. And I just want to make sure that the board understands, the supervisors understand that yes, while we do need this, that we should go, just don't go running to the voters asking for money. We should take some sort of, they should take some sort of concerted effort to study the full cost and impact of what would it be a jail district, where they can find efficiencies to reduce that tax burden everywhere they can by maybe building the jail a certain way or building it in a certain place or setting it up in a certain way before they go out to the voters. But I would agree that based on what I saw, there's no doubt in my mind that we need a new jail in this county.
Yeah, I agree we need a new jail, and be my recommendation that it be at, I understand the county owns what used to be Miracle Valley. So if they own that property, it's, the location is good, the resources are good there. I mean,
Where's that at?
Miracle Valley.
Palacitas.
On Highway 92 between Bisbee
It's where that old
Service.
Bible college is.
And the other thing is, if it's not there, I think it should be in Sierra Vista. That's where the population, that's where so much takes place. It just makes sense, and rather than over here. It's more expensive to build over here because of the terrain.
And I encourage you to make those comments to the board when it's time. And you know, the vote on the district, which said that even before they vote on the district, they should take this time to get the data on where it should be.
Well,
No.
no, I don't think there's a problem with them voting to establish the district. What I'm saying is before they make the decision on deferring the tax increase to the ballot and what that tax increase is, they should do that research. And I think it will, in the long run, benefit the likelihood of the taxpayers approving the jail district. There's going to be so much, with the exception of people in this room and a handful of other county employees that know what's going on. It has opened my eyes, I can tell you, by seeing this. The vast majority of the 200,000 other people in this county
They don't know.
they don't know, right? So they're going to be subject to word of mouth and other people who don't have that information spreading misinformation and you know, I've been in politics long enough to know how quickly stuff can spread if it's not countered with factual data. So it would be in the best interest of the jail district and the county to have that, at least some. I mean, I don't have like the architectural drawings posted on the ballot, but I mean, have some information approximately what this is going to cost, you know, where it's going to be located, the benefit and reason and rationale why, and have that so it can be put in a pamphlet or voter guide or something that the voters have that information, they're armed with that information before they fill the vote. If you just say, we're going to just start a jail district and we're going to have a tax increase and nobody really knows where that money's going to go, I could just hear the noise now. But I think it would be worth it for everybody's benefit to have a little scoping and scope exactly what this jail district is going to be. And I don't know what that would cost. And, you know, I know there's companies and consultants that can help with that. And like the guy that came in and we talked to at the end, the jail guy, you know, that can generally give you an idea. And there's, you know, real estate guys that can tell you approximately what the land is going to cost, tell you what the building cost might be, rough order of magnitude, and put that out in the general guideline to then have a basis for what that sales tax is going to be. That would be the smart thing to do. I just, you know, the voting the district, telling the board to vote for the district is separate from that.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you're in favor of the district, but before going back to the voters on how much and those details, you want some more data
Sure.
for the voters to consider.
Right, so my rudimentary, just looking at this, I agree that this is probably, to what John said, not the best place to put it. Whether it's closer to Sierra Vista, whether it's closer to Benson or something, and, I graphically, just for fun, went on the Google's map after the deputy told me about how they have to drive into Tucson and up to Pinal County and everything. And I was in the geographically drive center of this county. If you try to find if you were to put the jail in a spot where it's about the same for every major place to drive, with the exception of Douglas, unfortunately, that was the one city that was a little out there. The middle of that is somewhere between Benson, off of I-10, somewhere between Benson and Wilcox. If you look at driving, how long it takes to drive everywhere, that would be for driving, the geographic center. Is it the best place? I don't know. I think you got to look at land costs. You got to look at the impact for locals. Are they going to want to jail there, or where the spirit? There's other things you got to consider.
Employees.
Somebody's got to look at that though. And before you say, okay, I'm going to plant the flag here, and this is where the jail's going to be built, there should be some thought that goes into that, because the cost associated with that translates into the money you need to raise to pay for that, and how much you're going to raise taxes to do that. There should be some rough analysis.
So with that and with respect, because you're a data-driven guy, you know your history, and I'm impressed by it. There's 125,000 people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
I just
beyond that, if I call on Rich or the sheriff, they haven't even started that process yet. Because, right. Where would we be at in that process?
Well, we provided you, as so far, the information that we have, but in order to get, we are going to proceed.
That's what I wondered.
Is hiring experts to determine also cost efficiency, not just for the building,
Right.
but for taking in the data and information about where it's supposed to be built.
So I think that one of the things that
But is
Frank
that
is
Richard
pointing at
before or
is-
after you asked for the
is
section?
that's what I'm thinking.
Right. So
Right.
that would be after.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So we have information that we provided all of you to give the general rough sense of what it is and what it would cost and the design and what it would take and staff. But we don't have those specifics, because when in my conversations to get that information,
Chicken or egg.
it's very costly.
Chicken and egg.
And and
So
so we,
there's a couple ways to skin the cat. You could do, there's a couple ways. Now, I don't think you're going to like it, and that's going to the ballot twice, because it costs money to put ballot propositions in, and people are going to spend money in favor against those. But you could do a limited, short-term, 5-year sales tax increase to cover that cost. And then after that's done, come back to the voters again at the end of that 5 years. You won't have to come back. If I'm just saying make it 5 years, you can come, if you have an answer in a year, you can go back a year later and say, now we're going to refer full district, full tax for 25 odd years to the voters, and just generate enough money to cover that initial cost. But that's up to the supervisors. There's more than one way to skin that cat, but I just, seeing people from both my private sector and my government experience, and I deal with U.S. defense a ton, and you want to talk about people making decisions that cost millions of dollars and then later find out they screwed up royally. There's a place to go look and see
Where they have money to do that.
yeah, they have the money to do that. And it
Makes sense.
but how many times I've been in meetings where somebody said, well, if we just spent, like $100K to look at this, we would have saved like $18 million, and that's my worry. That's all, that before you run out, and again, no offense to the public servants of the county, weird things happen to people when money starts to flow in. And I've seen this, and we just saw this at the legislature this session. They had all this surplus money, and they pissed it all away, pardon my French, just because they had the money. That's the problem, and that's what I'm worried about. And I want that money spent efficiently so that these guys get the best jail in the best place with the best resource and the best way to maintain that jail, and not have little left because we spent all this money on wasted effort. So,
Mr. Sheets, you were raising your hand. You have something you want to say?
Yes, thank you. I want to say thanks, first of all, for all the hard work that's gone into this opportunity. And I do agree, and looking at this information and sharing it with some colleagues here in the great city of Wilcox, we do know that we need a new jail. I do have to agree with the other two gentlemen who have spoken. I can't see one. I only see the one in there, but I'm saying that we need to look at the location. I don't think remodeling the current one is a good idea, but also nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes a tax increase. So that's going to be a tough sell, and I think there's wisdom behind getting us more information on where it's going to be, the best that it can be, and the timing involved. So, yeah, I'm very concerned about that part, and I know this vote doesn't have anything to do with that, but I want our board of supervisors to understand that I think a little more homework of where, and so it best serves our whole county. I do like some of the proposed ideas of over in, I think they said near Benson or Wachuca City, in that area, and also over closer towards Wilcox. Maybe we could shut down some of the satellite branches and conserve them and get it off I-10. It's a thought. But I do agree that let's find some money to do that homework before we go to the people and say we got to raise your taxes, because that 0.5% is going to hurt us over here. That's going to put us at 10%, and nobody's looking forward to that.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. Frank, what he said, we definitely have to do a cost analysis. And I think in the cost analysis should also be some consideration to remodeling the old, what that would cost versus a brand new one, maybe tremendous.
you know, his point is, Katie, he's trying to show,
Economic.
so to show the voters that if you build a new jail, it's going to cost you this much, including the maintenance and operation. If you remodel the old jail, it's going to cost you this much, and then this much to maintain and operate the old jail, so that there's an
Right.
I mean, the consideration should be given.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just want a new jail.
Yeah.
If you can say, what it costs to remodel it, just what it costs to run it.
I mean, you're stepping over the sandbags convinced me
Yeah.
Electric and water together.
Finding jails may be harder than everybody's thinking. We tried it in Benson one time, to a private jail for immigrants. We had more people coming out of the work against that.
Already
than you can imagine. Yeah.
But, I mean, you don't know that until you start looking at the, where we've been. So I agree with some of the folks that said that if you move it, it's here, people are used to it here. Decide to put it somewhere else, you're going to, the NIMBY factor is going to come out and you're going to hear the street. But you gotta look.
But you also got cost with employees too, because that'll be a form of,
Economic
economic growth.
Yeah, I got you.
Wherever.
But again, there's a way to look at that.
Yeah.
And put a price on that. And dollar.
The other thing is when at one time I owned a ranch between Benson and Wilcox. One time they were going to site the landfill on that ranch. But we didn't push them and made a cost study. Turned out it was going to be much more cost efficient to put it in Sierra Vista or Wachuca City where it ended up.
That's the point.
Due to the population
Right.
and where the amount of truck miles to haul stuff to the dump. So it's really important to do that. Just the center of the county doesn't mean that for the best.
No, I said,
And the other aspect of this that you have to weigh, and again, I think Rich could talk to this a little bit, is we're looking at it as the population now, and we have a $400 million port of entry that is going to be built, constructed in Douglas, and will change the community and add economic development and significant job employment there. And I think the demographic of the counties will probably change by the time this jail gets done.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, college is looking at that possibility that there's going to be considerable growth there.
Any other thoughts from people that you want to?
Well,
I'm fine, so.
I mean, be too simplistic, but because the security and the safety of the staff and the inmates are at risk, to me, there is no other alternative but to approve or recommend approving a new jail district. Just yesterday, there was a case settled in the San Diego jail where it was overcrowded, where a woman gouged her eyes out and she won a $4 million settlement. So I think we can't afford not to when you talk about, you know, it's not safe, it's overcrowded. I think we need a new jail, but that's just my personal opinion. You have to weigh that you can be penny wise and dollar poor. But that's
I have a question about if we did just the district without building a new jail, does that give you funds and time to do the study you need to build a new jail?
Yes, and so that's what
To me, it would seem logical to do the district first. Start money coming in, you can use, I mean, you're definitely short of staff and money, so that would be part of it.
And that's the consideration. And as I mentioned before, is we spend time and money now, and let's say it doesn't pass in May, then we're looking at yet another couple of years before we even try to make this attempt again. And by then, all that data is useless.
I'm not wrong, if you have a district have income coming in, you wouldn't even have to go to the voters. You could do a general revenue bond if there was enough money coming to make the payment or no.
Yeah, but you still have to, you mean for, sorry.
Build the jail.
I just want to be
bond
clear.
approval by the
Right, so that'd be separate. But if there's a jail district and it passes by a vote for the sales tax and there's money coming in, that can help with the planning that we definitely are going to move forward on about location and design, but that can fund that.
But how do we sell the tax? How do we sell the tax?
Yeah, there's got to be a way.
I mean, I've already, I had a meeting last time. I had Brian McIntyre there. So he brought it up, I brought it up. And I mean, it was a small group. I'm not going to say it was a huge amount of people. But I got good feedback on it that it is something that needs to be done. I think as long as we get the information out prior to a vote, I think you'll get people, because of the atmosphere of safety that we're all facing in this county. The people of Cochise County know, in their heart, they know we need something to help us be safe and to keep our staff safe and everything else. So I think if it's worded correctly and we get the basic information out, it'll sell.
And that's what we're, like in the last meeting, when we talked about the cost benefit analysis, and that when we started looking at this a long time ago, just to present to the board, it is that rehabbing the current facility and just with the minimal costs is in difficulty, and you can't expand like you can at a regular house, right? We can add an addition, we can knock down walls, you know, can't do the current jail. But on top of it is what we think this current jail, how much longer can it last? I mean, when you observed it, that's why we added that component of, at a certain point in time, it might not be a solution besides transporting all our population if we're not in the process of building a new facility. And that cost is $9.5 million.
That's what I brought up is, you know, we don't build a new one. This is our cost, basically. This is what it's going to cost, and everybody's going to have to be moved. If we do this, we have snowbirds helping us. We have everybody who comes through the county helps build this. So I got a good feedback, and I've talked to a couple other people just in the community. I'm not getting much pushback.
Katie, if I can add on to that, and something was said here when we did the survey a couple weeks ago, Anna Bradshaw, myself, my whole team, do every day is talk to the public.
Yeah.
And I've had nobody kick back. Nobody kick back. And granted, the lowest thing we had on our rating was the marketing because we have not marketed it. in a way that we need to before their special vote. But
Mhm.
one thing I think is so important, and Tony, I'd love to have his input on this too, and we're very close with those guys, your organization, different community groups, is the trust we have. The sheriff's office has a lot of trust in this community.
Yeah.
We have a lot of trust. And that survey was reflective of that. And that's the men and women that go out every day in the jail, in patrol, and our local law enforcement. We do very well. Our criminal justice system's well received. That is the hub of it. And let's just be real, it's the fact that we've been very efficient to have a jail 40 years when the life expectancy of a jail is 20. So I don't think we're going to have a problem passing it. I look at best practices of how we get there is what really we all collectively need to work on. And I think that's the most important part. But I really think we're going to pass it. People know they've got their money out of this jail and some. And if we had pocketed that after 20 years and put a little bit aside, we wouldn't even have this discussion if you think about it. Because 20 years, we start usually planning at that point. And again, that's not a power or point, but it's real. So I think we went out to the people. We got 20 million from the state. We got some more. Federal government's working on a couple million, see if that happens. And some others. So again, we're trying to do everything we can in a very good faith effort for the citizens. So I'm very positive this is going to pass. And will we have a couple of people come out and throw something else? And I've said
There's
this.
always going to be people.
And I know there was a mayor meeting yesterday that was addressed, and one of the concerns is the sales tax going up. Here's what I tell people all the time. You know, government doesn't run free. It doesn't. The one thing I've had to do as a sheriff is prioritize, which is my people, number one, which is number one thing on the survey, was to prioritize my people and our operation, but also comes prioritizing our budget to go through that. So, and I told this, I'll say to all the mayors, and not being kind of this, but it comes, do you want a jail or you want to pay more? And one thing we're not talking about, I think, and I think this is where you just hit on, Jennifer, is the liability that this tax people,
Yes.
we can also,
That's
well,
going to be that front.
you bet it is. And this is not some, you know, you're the first group that can be assembled, but since I've been sheriff, we've been pushing this really hard. I mean, numerous times, Commander, am I wrong on that? And saying, hey, we need a jail. We did a survey back in 17 that was very favorable to the sheriff's office and getting that push, but it was died on the vine for many other reasons. But the bottom line is, I think we're in really good shape. I appreciate you all and your comments and your thoughts, but if the county citizens did not trust law enforcement, like you see in other communities.
It's not an issue of trusting law enforcement. Everybody, I got you. I'm with you. It's trusting government. And the county, no offense to
Right, you're right.
authority, it's
Right.
them pissing the money away
Yes.
on all sorts of crazy, not you guys.
Oh, I
I don't
know.
think anybody's worried about you guys, but I think what they're worried about, what I've been hearing is that all of a sudden you have this cash flow come in. And again, you know, without a clear guide on where that money's going to go and how that money's going to spend and what it's going to cost, that creates doubt. And people vote with their wallet. They respect the law enforcement guys. I got it. But I think when they sit in there, well, now at their kitchen table filling out their ballot, when they're sitting at their kitchen table filling out their ballot, after they just tried to balance their checkbook or looked at their bank account, a lot of them think about that, you know, when they do that. And a lot of people in this county, it's a rural county, aren't really, you know, in the six-figure salary a year where they can easily absorb a half-cent sales tax.
Sure.
But you know, they're going to think of that, and that's the point. But back to your point, and I agree with you, they kind of do the cost-benefit analysis. Then I think yes, they will lean towards approving it. But
And you make a good point. I agree. But as your sheriff elected under mandates to authority to run the jail, the bottom line is, trust me, if we start drifting or going outside the scope of the authority of a jail district, I'll be the first to say it. Brian McIntyre's team would be the first to say it. Chris is not going to sit across the room with her and say, Sheriff, it's okay, just go and violate the law. I can tell you right now, he holds me accountable like the rest of us in this room. So bottom line is, I think you got, and I get your point. I do. It's about trust of others too. But collectively, I think
Especially the board of supervisors.
money doesn't come straight to you guys.
no, it doesn't.
That's the
I'm
thing.
not the contract authority.
It's going to come through a process, and it's going to touch several hands before it actually gets to the sheriff's.
Right.
And
That's what you're talking about.
that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
And
Every time somebody touches that money, a little
They're
bit
going to find a little bit
yeah, a
better
little
place,
bit comes
a little
off.
better place to put it.
So it's all about, right, they call it piss poor planning equals piss poor performance, right? The
Tony, I'm going to know French by the end of this discussion.
Well, if you put a little bit of effort into the plan from the front, then the backside turns out a lot better. And again, we've all in our lives have seen the result of people making decisions without having all necessary information. That's the point I'm trying to make. There is no doubt, I don't think anybody in this room would disagree with you and the people's opinion of the law enforcement in this county. I'm impressed by it. Like I said, I love your Facebook.
Yeah, thank
Post.
you.
Your guy, where he was
Right there.
your Facebook guy is just phenomenal. But that's great. But yeah, there's just, again, I just, you've got to make sure the taxpayers are not going to be
100%.
misserved. And I think just having that, that would be my recommendation. The recommendation, I think, with what the judge was saying is we have two things we're going to vote on today. And again, I'm supportive of both of those. It's just that I'm going to recommend that we slow down a little bit and do a little homework before we go throwing a half-cent sales tax out on the ballot.
And Frank, to answer the side on the sheriff's office, Commander Bradshaw, I've gone around, spoke to all the mayors numerous times, community leaders, you name it, military. Everybody has a stake in that. And I tell you, if I asked every mayor right now, they'd love to have it in their cities. But the bottom line is we have to be efficient. We've already
Don't put it in, stick
Yeah. Well, and I,
it out in the middle of it.
as John Pentek says right there, we just acquired that land down there, and there's some challenges to that land. And the county administrator and I have also had the same conversation which you're all talking about. But I like the idea of closing the satellite. And Wilcox, we're not going to close yours because you're so remote compared to the rest of the county. But Sierra Vista, I mean, you're 15 minutes south in Palomino,
Yeah, that's a
15 minutes east of the city. But then I got the county seat, and I also got the mayor over here saying, "Hey, we want you staying here, Sheriff." And I'm not saying it's not going to drive my answer. What's going to drive my answer is what's efficient, what's effective, and doesn't meet the mission of a jail. For the people.
But somebody needs to look at that. That's all I'm saying. You build a spreadsheet and you got your costs and what the net benefit of each one of those costs gains you. What maybe the answer is putting it closer to Sierra Vista, where right now, but we talked about Douglas growing too. There's got to be, somebody's got to look at that. I mean, that's all I'm saying. Before you run out there and say everybody's going to pay, 10 cents on the dollar in sales tax, because that's what it's going to be in a lot of towns and cities in this county. You're going to be close to 10 cents on the dollar.
And Benson and Wilcox, I know.
Right, for the total, right? So you're going to bump all
Excuse
this.
me for a second.
No. But I mean, your Benson's sitting at like what, 9.1?
It'll be 10.
Yeah, yes.
Space even higher.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So you're about.
They're going to look at the 10%. They're
Correct.
not going to look at
You're
the half.
looking at a pain threshold that's closely getting being painful for a lot of people. When they're going into a store and every dollar they put down, 10 cents goes to taxes. They're going to be paying attention. When they get their sales tax receipts, they buy especially big ticket items and stuff. That's really going to be the thing. So a lot of thought should go into it. And I agree with the sheriff that if you create that information, and with the reputation of the sheriff's department, and then the information they get from the county government and the board of soups, that this is the way it's going to be built. This is where it's going to be built. This is how much it's going to, approximately how much it's going to cost. This is the efficiencies. In the long run, we're going to save lawsuits. We're going to save efficiency through driving halfway across the southern part of the state to go here or go there or whatever. Maybe that's the thing. But there's a way to craft it where you could say we're going to have three phases. Phase one is the study phase, and we're going to refer a temporary half-cent sales tax for 5 years to do that. But we can, anytime within that 5 years, vote to go to what would be the construction phase or the build phase, design and build phase. And then the third phase is the maintenance and upkeep phase. If you can craft it that way and say this is going to be this phase, this is approximately the budget for that, this is going to be this phase, and the sales tax is going to pay for this, and then this is the last phase to maintain this. You're going to, maybe we drop it from 0.5 down to 0.1 to maintain it. Once the jail's built, it's up and running, we just have a tenth of a sales tax at that time, or craft it that way. But somebody needs to put that thought into that. That's the only thing I'm saying. It's just that hasn't happened. I don't see that happening. Right.
And that would be something that would happen between the formation of the district and going out to the voters. And most of the comments relate to when you're ready to go out to the vote. And I think that point is really valid and well made at this point. But, you know, the district also allows for additional services to be available that are not now available. And again, it cannot supplant current expenditure. So those are things that are important to remember. And you know, the discussion on location and the data and that kind of matches my thought process on whether to build a new jail or to rehabilitate the current one. I think it would be foolish to rehabilitate the current facility because it's just not going to be adequate for the future. So kind of where I would be is I've decided that I'm in favor of the district, but if we go out to the when it's time for a vote on the funding, if it's rehabilitate the jail, I may vote against it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we are. I mean, it's what we're doing is kind of informing the process about whether a district is a good idea, and then also whether or not it should be a new facility. But I think this information is good for the board, and it's going to be the board that's going to make a decision. It's going to be the board that's going to be the district too. They'll be continuing to make decisions as they go along. Any other thoughts, input?
Just wondering, actually, the county doesn't get any money from sales tax normally, right?
We get a half cent.
Half cent? Did you think about raising the property taxes rather than the sales tax, or did you get through that?
And that was in the last.
That was in the last meeting, I know.
It's the kiss of death.
Kiss of death.
Yeah.
It's an option.
Kiss of death.
It's an option, but
It's
it's
an
Well, and
option.
I think we did look at that, right? We had a
We would have
report
to-
on that.
we'd have to
and
improve-
not
we'd have
only
to-
did we not raise as much money, but as you continue to point out, everybody pays for it with the sales tax. only
The sales tax is not everybody traveling through Cochise County. Yeah, and
I
where
prefer the sales tax.
the property tax, it's just people who own, and we bear the brunt.
And in the last,
It's a
You
huge,
got a lot of land that's exempt for ag use. You know, it's not like Phoenix where you're in an incorporated municipality and you have a large property tax base to tap into. We don't have that.
No.
You just don't.
and the information we provided to get the same amount of money, we'd have to increase property tax.
Significantly.
I think 31%.
31%.
So,
It would die as before we even got to paper.
Well, I mean, and we can have input from the county attorney's office that it may be possible to do a slight property tax increase and then also sales tax. I mean, so those are options. But what we're doing is we're moving forward on whether a district should be established and whether we're going to recommend whether a new facility or rehabilitate. And then whatever input that you have, it really needs to go to the board. And really good points have been made. I mean, this is a formal time for you as a committee member to make the points that you want the board to consider. Anybody else?
You made a motion then, right?
Well, if we're ready for that, but I don't know if has everybody said their piece in terms of what they want the board to consider as we move forward? All right.
Yes.
You've been awfully quiet.
Everything that I would consider has already been addressed. So, you know, the location, you know, what tax dollars to draw from. So I'm ready.
Okay. Anybody have a motion on, and this is whether or not the form a jail district.
Motion to form the jail district.
We have a motion, is there a second? And all in favor, vote aye. Any opposed? It was unanimous, and Rick Pentek, you also voted the proxy for Ms. Gordon.
Two hands.
And then I think, at least from what I've heard as we've gone along, the next question is whether to build, rehabilitate. Is there a motion on that?
I make a motion, unless you want to make that. Okay, I make a motion that we build a new jail.
I'll second that.
Any discussion related to that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes. And he both and I. So that passes unanimously as well. And so the process goes forward. This will be the last meeting of this committee, so we'll revert back to our positions as members of the public. But you're encouraged to attend a meeting on November 15th. You are the most informed citizens in the county on this issue right now. And really, I think it would be very helpful to go out and talk about it and say your piece. But definitely input to the Board of Supervisors would be real helpful. I want to thank county staff, sheriff's office, our jail, officers that have come in throughout, and everybody that came in here to provide information. Incredible presentations that were provided. And I think, you know, for the board, and echoing some of the thoughts that have been made here, the more informed the citizens are, the more likely this is going to pass on.
Just like selling something.
On both counts. I mean, and we saw that in the surveys that went out, and we see it here. There may have been some doubts when we began about, you know, what direction, if this is necessary, those kind of things. Once we got the information, there's no doubt. This is beyond a reasonable doubt. So, again, thanks to all of the persons that came in and presented this. Does anybody have anything else?
I got a question. Aren't all three supervisors in favor of? You can't speak for them, because I got an idea.
We're going to find out.
They're gonna find out. I can't speak for them, and they're all in your eagles. Which, I want to say one last time. I want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you. This committee has been really involved, more so than I've seen in the past. So this is not the end for me, for sure, but I will be including all of you in future steps and also having conversations with you, because your questions and insights are helpful for me, okay? And I hope that just by us having this committee, okay, that you understand that I do want to take the appropriate steps to get a bunch of information so we don't, or we're not in the position of, why did we build it here? Well, because Rich said it'd be a good idea. Like, that never, I never want that to happen. So this is not the end. Formally, yes, for this committee, but informally, I will be contacting all of you as we progress so that you have the information and can still push out the information. And also, I want feedback. So if you can't be here for November 15th, please give me that information so I can pass it on to the information or to the supervisors, or I can read it to and let them know what your comments were. So they all very valuable. So thank you all, and I hope you always appreciated the pastries of these.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Judge. And I want to echo what County Administrator is saying, is thank you to all of you. Truly, we all came in individuals, but you're leaving as a team. And that's huge marketing for us as we go out into the communities and market what we're doing. And on behalf of the men and women sitting in this room and the inmates that actually sit in the jail that I have to safeguard by Constitution, the bottom line is thank you, because you are the platform. And like I said, I'm looking forward to Sunday's paper comes in saying what this group recognized, and as you came in one, left as a team. So thank you all so much. And Rich, thank you for your team on that too. So.
Do we get like a
rematch?
No, a 90-day exemption from speeding tickets out of this?
Only if he stops. Check with all the
And he
inmates
will.
before he come over and told us.
Yes, not yet. We can tell them in a
I
minute.
also want to recognize the staff at the jail. In going through the facility and, you know, the things that they've had to deal with, and they have done an exemplary job. And I can tell you from working on the court that it's always good. It's always good. And down in staff, make it happen. And so I really do want to commend all the jail staff, standard, lead officers. I mean, it's just excellent.
Tell you too, is there a lot more professional than when I was here? You're a lot.
All right, so I move that we adjourn our meeting, sine die, last time. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. You are returned to